Yow, 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 yow. You're muted, dumbass. Good start.
Look at me go. I'm a professional, sir. Dave, I'm so excited for this. What a 500 we had. But first, I guess we should tell everyone what this is and what it is we're doing here.
New show right here on Markout Moments. Loose going into 4 with Dave and TJ. So if you're avid listeners to the former Filter Free Popcast and Drunken Pop, you would know that TJ and myself love to dabble in the world of NASCAR.
It's true.
Timmy C, not a fan. Pondwater, he was watching.
He's a solid man.
TJ and I decided, hey, man, what better than to watch some NASCAR and actually get right here on markoutmoments.net, our YouTube channel, and talk about it with our lovely followers and subscribers. We got Moose here, professional asshat.
That's me.
So, I mean, there is no race bigger than the Daytona 500.
That's correct. It's not even close.
Indy 500, but nobody watches it. So I guess going live maybe is a spectacle for IndyCar. But here in America, it's all about NASCAR, stock car racing. Because, I mean, nothing screams out stock car like all these computerized cars that they have now in NASCAR. Which I'm you know what? Doesn't bother me. The things that they're doing, the one lug nut, you know, with the quick pit stops that they're having now, going to a more like Formula One style.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those diehard fans from the 80s that just think they've bastardized everything. There are some things I'm not a fan of, but the cars being upgraded to the next gen and the new gen and the other gen. Hey man, things change, cars change.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. However, what we saw yesterday was the ending is a restrictor plate race ending like you get at Daytona and Talladega.
Right.
And now, I mean, Atlanta has been added, but there were ups and downs to Daytona for sure. I got to catch a little bit of the clash last Thursday, but we were recording Drunken Pop, so I had it on my phone, just watching a little bit here, but I couldn't listen to anything. But I will say, what is it? It's no longer the Xfinity series. It's the O'Reilly Auto Parts series.
Right.
Which was before Xfinity nationwide, and before that it was Busch.
Forever.
Right? Correct. I mean, so it was growing up, it was always Winston. And I didn't even put the two together that it was Winston cigarettes.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So Winston Cup and the Busch Grand National. I thought it was some guy named Winston back in the day that they named it after.
Winston.
So I had no idea. And my stepdad smoked Winston cigarettes growing up. So I had zero idea that it was even related to, I mean, because I remember the Skull car.
Yeah.
And all that before, you know, they lost that fight. But I mean,
Miller Genuine Draft, Crown Royal.
Well, you can still have all that on the cars, but
it went away for a while.
You can't have tobacco products.
Right.
I'm sure we're going to see a Zen car before too.
Well, Kyle Busch did have a tobacco team pouch sponsor.
He did. So NASCAR's back. It's a summer tradition in the United States. So, you know, it's always, TV's a little different in the summer. If you're a baseball fan, hey, you got baseball.
Right.
But there is no football. There's no basketball. You know, once July hits, basketball and hockey are done.
Well, the UFL's coming.
That's been ass. So would love a good spring football league. But the way the rules are set up with spring football, and these teams get about 2 weeks to prepare. They put these random teams together. They get about 2 weeks of practice in before the first game. It was not good. The first XFL, not good.
No, it was the first, but
they tried it. Off. They tried a couple other leagues. There was the spring football league, and then there was another football league. It just hasn't worked.
The USFL came back for a cup of coffee.
Well, the USFL and the XFL merged and made
Right.
the UFL.
Right.
But neither one were good.
No.
But I mean, a couple years ago, there was the Spring Football League, and then there was also another one. I mean, outside of the XFL's first season, and then the USFL and the XFL coming back, like they didn't even make it to championship games.
Was that the All-American Football League or something?
Yeah,
like
something
that?
like that. Yeah, something like that. It hasn't worked out, and it hasn't been good football. And until it's seriously, the NFL probably needs to grab a hold of it and do something with it to make it work.
Make a farm system.
But it's and I mean, I would much rather guys go to a farm system, go make 30 farm teams and give us spring football and fix college football, because college football is being destroyed from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with players getting paid. But there's got to be some kind of rhyme or reason in this Wild West style. It's not sustainable. And I mean, I get hit up for booster donations and stuff all the time. And it's like, dude, for what? These guys have no loyalty to this school. They don't care. So, I mean, as much as I think Michael Irvin's a clown, at least he cares for his alma mater.
Right.
So, not good. But there is big news in NASCAR. There is a major change this year, TJ.
What would that be?
The chase. It is back to the chase. It is no longer the playoff format as it has been in years past. So the chase that was absolutely dominated by Jimmy Johnson when he won, 5 in a row?
Correct.
And won a total of 7 championships under the chase format. We are back to the chase format where the points reset for the final 10 races of the year, and whoever wins or has the most points coming out of Miami Homestead, which is the final race of the year, will be your NASCAR champion. So it won't be, the last, you go 4 races and then the one race at the end.
Yeah.
It's straight up 16 Miami, people are in.
Yeah.
And there are no, just because you won a race doesn't mean anything.
So that's probably the biggest
automatically
change.
Locked in.
That's probably the biggest change, right? So the win and you're in is no longer a thing, which to me is a double-edged sword, right? And we're going to get into the bigger ramifications of this, and specifically the antitrust lawsuit in the offseason here in a minute. But like on the one hand, you used to get, your Front Row Motorsports would win at Daytona or something like that, or some random team would just pick up or Shane Van Gilsbergen from last year.
Well, I think that's where it is. When he won 5 of the 6 road races. And, yeah.
And so you're in, but let's be honest, like at no time did a Front Row or a Furniture Row, now it's Spire, or any of those teams ever really contend for the title once they made it to the playoffs. No.
Right.
But really now with this format, I mean, we're going to be watching Roush, Hendrick in 2311
and
fight for the title. So
Gibb will be there.
Yeah, Gibbs will have a couple.
Yeah, Joe Gibb Racing, they'll be in there.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to see, but at the one hand, I think doing it this way also probably prevents a Jimmy Johnson scenario happening, because now there's much more parity in NASCAR than there was in the 2000s when it was Hendrick and it was Childress at the time. Gibbs and Toyota was just getting started in the early 2000s. And
it was mainly Gibbs. They were in Chevy.
Right.
And then switched to Toyota, because Toyota started with Red Bull Racing and Michael Waltrip Racing.
Yes.
And the teams were terrible.
They were awful. Brian Vickers. And what was the other one?
Brian Vickers and JJ Yaley.
That might be right, yeah.
But it just didn't work out. And then but Toyota didn't really jump in until Joe Gibbs Racing.
G Gibbs, yeah.
So, and then Joe Gibbs Racing just absolutely destroyed what was then the Nationwide Series, which became the Xfinity Series.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it so between Penske, or it was Roush and Joe Gibbs Racing killed the Nationwide Series by having, Kyle Busch raced damn near every Nationwide race.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other? Carl Edwards.
Well, Carl Edwards, but Penske was doing it too with Keselowski.
Well, they did it with Carl Edwards mainly. It was Edwards because it was, you're like, and then they made it so Cup guys couldn't compete for the championships, but they were still in the races, and those races were just done. So unless it was a weekend where Cup was one place and
right,
Xfinity or Nationwide was in another place, you weren't. It was just the same drivers, and they were dominating the lower competition. But see, now you have, Kyle Busch started Kyle Busch Racing,
JR Motorsports,
and so now you have JR Motorsports, which is essentially just Hendrick's
cars under Dale Jr.'s team,
right? So, Kyle Busch Racing was Kyle Busch cars under the Gibb banner,
right?
So I'm all game for Hendrick and Gibb and Roush and all of them having teams in other series, but I like the fact that they don't have the drivers.
Doing back to back,
right?
Double duty.
So, it's every once in a while it was fine, but it was every weekend, and it was dominated by the Cup guys.
So, but before we go too much further into this, because I do have a whole segment of the show on what next year is going to look like, not this season, but next season. Let's go into the biggest stories heading into 2026, and we'll start with this is by far the biggest, took all the attention, the antitrust lawsuit. Levied by 2311 and Front Row Motorsports against NASCAR. Now, if you're just getting into NASCAR, or if you just watch it, you don't really bother to get involved in the inner workings like we do, you may not understand what this meant and what the implications were. So during the season, beginning of the season, last season, Team 2311, which is Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, and then Front Row Motorsports, filed a class action lawsuit against NASCAR because their charter agreement made NASCAR monopolistic. So what you have, each team has a series or a certain amount of charters that dictates how many cars that team can own. So I believe at the time the cap was, well, actually I don't know what it was before. Now it's 4. The cap, you go 4 teams.
It's usually what you've had is 4.
Usually,
and then
4.
It'd be like, well, there's a 5th car or something for Hendrick, or
But it's usually like a guy doing, a guy from Xfinity doing a one-off, then going back.
Yeah.
So both teams filed and were granted a motion of preliminary injunction allowing them to race in the 25 season, even as their lawsuit against NASCAR was officially underway. Now, throw into the mix for this is Stewart-Haas Racing shuts its doors last year, putting their 4 charters up for sale. So now they wanted this injunction allowed those 4 charters from Stewart-Haas Racing, 2 to go to 2311, 2 to go to Front Row.
Yeah.
And the U.S. Court of Appeals, because what I want them doing is NASCAR stuff, on the 4th Circuit overturned the injunction, then denied the team's appeal. So now it just got real hairy for the teams because they had this injunction allowing them to race, and now the judge says, nay, this is not the case. So what does that mean? So now we have Front Row and 2311 running as open teams starting at Dover in July. Now, what does that mean? So that means the 4 of Noah Gragson, the 23 of Bubba Wallace, the 34 of, is it David or Todd Gilliland?
David Gilliland.
David, yeah. Todd was his dad. 35 of Raleigh Herbst. By the way, both Gilliland's driving for Front Row it hurts my head. 38 for Zane Smith and the 45 of Tyler Reddick. More on him in a bit. Would not have guaranteed entry in any of the remaining races if over 40 cars attempted to qualify. Plus, they were getting reduced purses for each race.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. So on December 11th, a settlement was reached between 2311 and Front Row and NASCAR having their charters back. Each team got 3. 2311 now it's 4. So again, more on that in a minute. And compensation for lost income on those races in which the purse is reduced. In addition, all teams will receive compensation from NASCAR's international media rights deal, as well as being paid a third of any new NASCAR deals involving the team's intellectual property. This also results in all teams maintaining certain performance standards to maintain their charters. And if they don't, they will have to sell those charters, with NASCAR receiving 10% of that sale. It was 2. So you have this deal here, this lawsuit. And we were talking to Pine Water about it yesterday, and I disagree with him because he said this, the NASCAR didn't like Michael Jordan holding up that Daytona 500 trophy, which they did until the video of him and Reddick's son that's just weird came out. But it's Michael Jordan held the Daytona 500 trophy. Like, you want that moment. I don't care what happened before.
Yeah, NASCAR loved that moment.
Of course. But this lawsuit wasn't as lopsided as people think it was. NASCAR got quite a bit out of it too. And I don't hate the fact that you have 2311 and Front Row Motorsports and NASCAR all coming to a settlement, all getting something out of this deal. And we saw yesterday, Front Row had 2311 had 4 cars with who was that racing in the 67? He was in the front there for a while. I had the results up. I guess I could just look at that. Was it a Wise? I want to say it was a Wise.
Corey Heim,
yeah. So, and then Front Row, I think, had 3.
Yeah, because there was 4 charter teams up. Front Row got 1. 2311 got 1 or 2. And Trackhouse got the other one.
Yeah, Trackhouse got the other one. Well, it had to have been 2 because they had 3. Now they got 4.
Yeah, so Trackhouse now has a 3rd car.
Now, as far as what this does as far as leveling the playing field, which I think is what 2311 and Front Row were hoping for, or giving themselves a benefit, let's not sugarcoat things. But I don't know what that means for NASCAR and the charter system and teams moving forward. But again, it seems that all teams are getting money out of this deal, and NASCAR as well. So this was almost like a heated collective bargaining agreement almost. This turned into.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think you're right. I think both sides of the lawsuit came out ahead. It wasn't a good look for NASCAR.
It was not.
And when you have someone with the power of Michael Jordan coming out and you're against it, whether you think you're right or wrong, a lot of people are going to look at you with a side eye, being like, yeah, I don't know. So I think ultimately everybody got what they really wanted. And it's going to work out. But like you said, the whole thing that we need is more parity in NASCAR.
Right.
So you don't have essentially
Jimmy Johnson.
Well,
so you don't have Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson killed NASCAR.
He did.
Because if you go back to 2005, 2006, NASCAR was touted as the number 1 up-and-coming sport in America.
That is
the
correct.
ratings were off the chart.
Yep.
Now, here's something that I can say. I truly believe NASCAR doesn't cheat.
Right. I don't
Because if there was ever any nefarious, as Timmy would say, shady type dealings going on, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have won a championship in NASCAR.
100%. Absolutely, he would have. Especially when he was driving for DEI.
Yeah. And he did not.
Right.
So even when he went to Hendrick, it still took him a while to get back in the winner because he went a few years without even winning a race.
That's correct. Carl Edwards would have got one.
Right. So he got back in the winner's circle and he made it a few more times. But by the time Junior seemed to get the ball rolling again, Gibb was up and coming. Joe Gibbs Racing was up and coming, and Kyle Busch was all over the scene.
Yeah, and Childress was starting to fall. Penske was making a comeback,
right,
with Keselowski and who was the other driver? It was after Mayfield or Newman, rather. It was after Ryan Newman. I can't remember who it was.
Well, then you got Joey Logano there now. So
Logano now, yeah,
but he's the face.
Who's Hendrick, Childress? Who's the other one? Roush. Roush fell off the earth for a while.
Yeah, because it was Logano and Keselowski were part of Roush, right?
Keselowski
didn't Logano leave? Didn't Logano leave?
Keselowski's
Gibbs?
there now.
Well, now Keselowski's part owner,
right?
So, but I know Logano.
I think Joey Logano's been Penske since day one.
Well, he was with Gibb for a long time.
Oh, that's right. He was in the 20.
Yeah,
I forgot. Yeah, there's a couple years I didn't watch, so there's a gap in there.
So, but Childress has fallen back.
Yeah,
Kyle Busch is driving a Childress car, hasn't won in a couple years now, and that's unheard of for Kyle Busch not to have a win because he's arguably one of the most talented drivers in NASCAR, but the equipment's just not there for him. It doesn't seem like. So, but I guess Kyle Busch and Joe Gibbs finally had enough of each other and moved on.
And I want to make one thing clear too before we go any further. I am not saying that Jimmy Johnson did not deserve those 7 titles. The man is one of the best drivers NASCAR's ever seen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just between himself, Gordon at the time, eventually Junior, like that whole team was just stacked, and Hendrick had all the money. So it wasn't like usually on teams, you'll get 2 contenders and then 2 guys that are just there if they have 4 cars. All 4 of those cars were contenders. And
well, especially when it was Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt, and Casey Kane.
Yeah, that was the other one, Casey Kane.
Arguably 4 of the biggest names in NASCAR.
Yeah.
All under, one organization. It was crazy. And then then you had Carl Edwards leave Roush and go to Joe Gibbs Racing. Mm-hmm. So at one point you had Carl Edwards, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and he drove the 20.
Tony Stewart.
No, Tony Stewart left before that. What was his name?
Daniel Suarez.
No, I'll get it. Hold on.
Let's not forget this too. Edwards. Is it Edwards I'm thinking of that went? Like when it was Edwards, Kenseth. Like when that was the Roush team. When all those guys left, that's when Roush kind of started dragging.
Matt Kenseth. When Matt Kenseth left Roush.
Oh, that's right. I forgot
to go to Gibbs. Yeah, Kenseth. So, so you had, and then Stewart left
to start
Gibb and started his own team and had a terrible year, but won the championship.
Yes.
Caught fire at the end, beat Edwards. But see, I kind of thought, here's where I thought it got weird. So when NASCAR started with the new format, it always seemed like, the final 4, that last race where the last 4 could win. It always seemed like those cars were like 1, 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, 3, and 6, or whoever was going. Usually one of the 4, it ended up 1, 2,
right,
with them. And so to me, that was like that seems a little, especially in the days of because Hendrick went a couple years without anything,
right,
until they got back in with Elliott. Won a championship, and then now you've had Larson win 2 of the last couple. So after Larson's gaffe during 2020, where he lost his sponsorship with McDonald's.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah. So, but he's returned like crazy. But there is no more DEI racing. There is no Michael Waltrip racing. Penske, Roush is gone. So it's different. So Roush Fenway is now, RFK, Roush Fenway Keselowski.
Yeah.
And Keselowski's part owner.
NASCAR was ready for a change team wise. I'm looking at the 2007 season and who all was, because I would say the late 2000s, like 06 to 11, was probably NASCAR's hardest period, which unfortunately was also when Jimmy Johnson was just dominating everybody. So you had Dale Earnhardt, you had DEI, which was Truex, Paul Menard, and Mark Martin.
You had Mark Martin at Hendrick for a while too. There,
Before that was supposed to be. So he allegedly left Rouse and retired, and that was my dad's favorite driver. Then he went to Hendrick, and my dad hated him. And then he wrestled. He raced 2 years at DEI. Richard Childress.
Then Casey Kane came in.
And then
because Brian Vickers was there and lost his ride and went to Red Bull.
Right. And then
Kyle Busch was there and lost his ride to Junior.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Richard Childress was Harvick, Burton, Jeff Burton, and Clint Boyer. The 07, by the way, the 07 Jack Daniels car is still my favorite car ever.
Yeah.
The 29 and the 31. Hendrick had Casey Mears, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and Junior. Casey Mears was in the 5. Ganassi was still around. This is the year they had Juan Pablo Montoya.
And Ganassi ended up merging with Earnhardt.
Yep.
Yeah.
The end of Dodge also was around this time. Gillette Evernham Motorsports was Casey Kane, Carpentier, and Elliott Sadler. Penske had Busch, Newman, and Sam Hornish was in the 77 as a rookie. Petty had Kyle Petty, Chad McCumbee, Terry Labonte, Boris Sedno. Kyle Petty got the majority of those rides in the 45. Bobby Labonte was in the 43. Roush Fenway was David Reagan, Greg Biffle, Matt Kenseth, Jamie McMurray, and Carl Edwards. They had 5 cars. Wood Brothers was mostly Bill Elliott.
Yep.
And Marcos Ambrose. That's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
JTG Doherty Racing.
That's crazy. Yates was Quapo and Gilliland. That would become front row, and they get rid of the 28. Hall of Fame. Logano raced 2 races in 07 for Hall of Fame racing. Gibbs was Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Tony Stewart. And then listen to this shit. Michael Waltrip Racing. Michael McDowell, David Rudiman, Dale Jarrett, and Michael Waltrip.
Yeah. And they were ass.
It was terrible. And the Team Red Bull was Vickers and mostly Allmendinger in the other car. So, yeah, I mean, and listen, that breakdown of Hendrick, Roush, Gibbs dominated NASCAR for 20 years. Like team-wise, I mean, NASCAR's ready for a change. You have to change over at some point. And, the Wood Brothers used to dominate in the 70s. And, before that, Morgan McClure and all those things. And it's just time for a change. I think 2311 is a nice breath of fresh air as a team for NASCAR. You still have your Hendrick cars were still up there, but a lot of front rows. Now, Grant's a super speedway, so that's where front row does best. And Trackhouse is a nice addition. And I mean, you have some different cars, some different team owners. So I think it kind of helps level the playing field a little bit from a fan's perspective, and also doesn't build resentment to Team Hendrick from 05 to 2020 because they just dominated the point scene, specifically Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah. Well, they mastered. What they did was Chad Canals was Jimmy Johnson's crew chief.
Yes.
And they mastered the last 10 races.
Yes.
That's what mattered.
They knew we gotta win 2 races during the season. We can do that, but we got to be badass at the back 10.
Yeah,
and they always were, and
they mastered it. But it killed NASCAR.
It did again because you had those guys like a Carl Edwards, like a Junior. Junior was how many years in a row was he NASCAR's most popular driver? Like all of them.
I mean, every year he raced.
But Carl Edwards and you had and Tony Stewart to a degree, you had all these guys ready to like burst onto the scene and kind of tank the mantle, and they just couldn't because Jimmy Johnson was there. Again, nothing against Jimmy Johnson. Man's one of the greatest drivers we've ever seen.
Yeah. So I mean, but it was in this day and age, it kind of goes with my hatred of the Chiefs. And in my early 2000s hatred of the Patriots.
Right.
I don't want to see the same teams win it over and over and over and over and over again.
So you know what's funny is we've talked about this before on Drunken Pop. Like there's this interpretation if you ask the different commissioners and owners of sports leagues, like, oh no, the fans like to see the same teams doing a good. No, we don't.
Mm-mm.
I would say the majority of fans get burned out after a while, and
that's how you lose fans.
Yeah. So
long gone are the days of wrestling. Nobody wants to see Bruno Sammartino hold the belt for 10 years. It gets old.
Yeah, it does. So then you give it to Stasiak for a week.
Yeah.
Speaking of points championships, I actually didn't know this until we started researching the ongoing storylines heading into the story. I did not realize Denny Hamlin has never won a title.
Never won. And he had it last year. He was going to win his first ever championship last year until a caution at the end, and Kyle Larson got around him and won the championship.
Yeah.
If it had not been that weird caution at the end, it cost Denny Hamlin a NASCAR championship.
And by the way, so he also has 3 Daytona 500s, which is crazy. That he's won 3 500s, never won a points title. He's finished second twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time was like 2007, I think. And
now you think if he were to win it now, he'd be like the oldest.
Oh, here we go. So this is his 22nd full-time season he's doing this year. He's finished second in the points twice, 2010 and last season. He's finished in the top 5 in the point standings an additional 8 times. So half the time this man has raced, he's been in the top 5 points at the end of the season. He's won 70 races in his career. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yes.
But what's crazy is this the year he finally breaks through? He had a good showing in Daytona until the end. But at 46, he will break the record this year if he wins the title for oldest driver to win their first championship, which is currently held by Bobby Allison, who won the title in 1983 at the age of 45.
Mm-hmm.
So Denny Hamlin trying to set records this year and win his first title. And it's such an interesting dichotomy because, again, you have Denny Hamlin, won 3 500s. One of the best road course drivers there's been in forever. Consistently towards the top. Again, he's finished in the top 5 in points 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
Not have a title, but yet you had 5 past champions in yesterday's Daytona 500 that have never won the Daytona 500.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like Dale Earnhardt.
Right.
He had won everything except the Daytona 500 until 1998.
So let's talk about this. Do you think, with all the things we just said, with Team 2311 in front row, all these actually, there's only one rookie this year, which we'll talk to you about that here in a minute. Is this the year that Denny Hamlin gets it done? And if it is, let's say Denny Hamlin wins the title this year, is this the year Denny Hamlin retires?
I don't know.
I would say if he wins
I think if he were to win, he would retire.
I think so too. I think if he wins this year, he retires and just focuses on owning 2311.
So, I mean, it's hard to say when there's legit, what do you say, 12 guys that could win the championship?
Yeah, at least 10 for sure.
I mean, all of Hendrick, all of Gibb.
Yep.
Plus, Logano and Blaney at Penske.
Yep.
You never know if, is Reddick going to catch fire with 2311?
Mm-hmm.
They've had 2311 has had good seasons.
Yeah, Bubba Wallace is consistent.
Yes, he's up there, and Bubba Wallace is, he is a force on the racetrack. Love him or hate him.
Yeah.
There's some controversy there with some things from a few years ago.
Right.
Which some people, gravitated to him about it. Other people looked at it and was like, this is some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is.
Right.
But I mean, does Richard Childress get it together? I'm one that, man, it's hard to ever count out Kyle Busch.
I would agree with that.
And you've got, I mean, even, Stenhouse and stuff like that. It's a one-man show with JTG Doherty.
Right.
And he's a hell of a driver.
He is.
So there's a lot of drivers out there that can win this thing.
When they crossed the line for the white flag yesterday, maybe people didn't realize this. Stenhouse was second.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot he was in NASCAR, to be honest with you. And then I was like, oh, is that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in second?
So there's always, there's a lot that can win it. I find it weird that Denny Hamlin still races for Gibbs and doesn't race for 23XI.
I don't believe that's the first time that's happened, but it for sure hasn't happened a bunch. So yeah, it is kind of odd.
I would be like, man, I kind of want to race for the team I own, especially if I consider myself a first ballot Hall of Famer and the type of caliber driver that he is.
Yes.
And you have, like we said in our little group text, the man that really owns 23XI has a lot of money.
He sure does. And he got tired of pissing it away with the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, and that team will be, for as much money as Rick Hendrick has, and these guys have no idea the caliber of dollars in the pocket of one Michael Jordan.
Yes. And,
I think his biggest detriment of owning the Charlotte Hornets was it's kind of, it's not a small town, but it's a small market in terms of NBA teams.
Right.
And he could never attract any of the big names.
Right.
And that's weird. And as we get further along in the years, the name Michael Jordan on the basketball court still holds a lot of weight, but it didn't in terms of free agency and things of that nature with the Charlotte Hornets.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who owns them. They've pretty much been trashed the whole time they've been a franchise.
That's correct.
Outside a few years with Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson, who immediately when their contracts were up left. So what does that tell you? It's just not there. Hell, they drafted Kobe Bryant, couldn't keep him because they traded for Vlade Divac
that night.
Yeah. So it's just not there. And it's one of the things that, I don't watch the NBA. I think it's trash.
It is.
So used to love it, but that's not basketball anymore where guys can take 4 steps and everybody just shoots threes all game. And they're only allowed to play man-to-man defense and there is no real defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's not basketball. If I want to watch basketball, I turn on ESPN and watch college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's just not there. And, Michael Jordan he became friends with Denny Hamlin apparently at some event. They met, became quick friends.
I think it was one of those celebrity golf tournaments.
Yeah. And decided to start a race team. And, there is for even as much as we've said, like NASCAR is nowhere near the popularity and the heights it used to be. There's still a lot of money in NASCAR. There was a lot of people at Daytona.
NASCAR is making a comeback from a fan perspective, especially internationally, which we'll get to here in a minute. But
NASCAR needs good racing.
Yes.
There's a reason why I don't watch F1 and I don't watch Indy. It's not good racing. So, F1, you got guys that are shit. They won the race and they're a lap ahead of everybody else.
You can run away and hide in those cars for sure.
But, and NASCAR has a lot of tracks with some really good racing. They do have the cookie cutter tracks, as we say.
Kansas.
Sometimes not great, but it's still closer than some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
But, but sometimes there's phantom cautions here or there that bring them back at the end.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that the Daytona 500 got a bad rap yesterday. And for as good as the start was and as good as the end was,
it's the middle.
Where teams were going about 30 miles an hour with 20 plus miles an hour slower than what they could actually run.
So
because they were doing nothing but gas saving.
Let's set the details here. So you had 3 Toyotas leading 3 lines of traffic around the track at about 58% throttle, I believe was the number. for, as you said, fuel efficiency. For one, if I was at Daytona and I spent the money to watch this race, and this is what I have to watch in the middle, I'd have been furious. But, you know, my first thought, again, I started watching NASCAR in 1993 with my dad. I was a giant Rusty Wallace fan. And he was Mark Martin, and everyone loved Dale. Like, that was...
See, I hated Dale Earnhardt growing up.
For the same reason, like he always won?
Yes.
Okay. So... But you had all these characters, right? And I'm sitting there watching this race, and I'm like, there was no way any of the drivers from 1995 would have allowed this. Someone is going in the wall if that's the case. And I am not mad in any way, shape, form, or fashion at the three guys that led the three lines and did this. I'm mad that they let him.
Yeah, everybody just stayed in line behind him.
Yeah. And so I don't know. You can't, NASCAR can't tell them to not do that. You just can't. So I don't know how you fix that.
I don't know. I mean, but the great Jeremy Mayfield got onto Twitter. Let me find it. I screenshotted the tweet.
Was he high?
Oh, this was actually Facebook. Here we go. Jeremy Mayfield, who is the resident NASCAR troublemaker.
Yes,
he's been in a lot of trouble with the law and with NASCAR, and
we'll do that. We'll say that.
Some drug allegations and things. Jeremy Mayfield, another Daytona 500, another finish where the winner leads one lap because everyone else is out or in the wall. We just spent hours watching professional drivers save gas like they're driving a damn Prius, only for the finish to be decided like that. We're supposed to call this the Great American Race. This car is a tank. The drivers have zero respect, and the trophy is losing its meaning. Seeing the veterans get chewed up and spit out by the bump and run tactics of these younger drivers is getting hard to watch. Today proved that experience doesn't matter at Daytona anymore, only who is willing to be the biggest wrecking ball. If you enjoyed that finish, you're a fan of crashes, not a fan of racing.
I would say that's a fair assessment. But on the same token, the bump and run aspects of you guys were doing that when you were rookies. That's not new. Now, the amount of cars that finished Daytona, that we can talk about. I think there was only like 22 on the lead lap. There was only like 17 cars that hadn't been wrecked.
Well, I mean, going into that final lap.
Yeah, 2 wrecks in the last lap.
So with 2 laps to go, I watched a video from Kyle Busch. It was his in-car feed with him talking to his spotter.
Yeah, I heard that.
Kyle Busch was in 20th and dropped all the way back to 30th. And the spotter's like, what are you doing? He goes, why the fuck am I going to stay up there and be wrecked?
Yeah.
And in one lap, he gained 15 spots and finished in 15th.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have the car to compete. He was struggling with the steering all race. And he got himself a lot of points there at the end by being smart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you think Kyle Busch 10 years ago would have done that?
Nope. No. I think Kyle Busch 5 years ago wouldn't have done that.
Was it the greatest thing to watch? No. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about the restrictor plate racing and the way racing is at Daytona. You know, Dale Earnhardt used to literally race at Daytona, and he'd be up front, and the next thing you know, he'd be way back in the back. And then he'd be up in the front, and then he'd be back in the back. And he'd be up in the front, and he'd be back in the back. And they asked him, why did you do that? He goes, I do that because I want to know how long it's going to take me to get back up front when I need to be up front.
Right. Not long.
And I mean, sometimes in Daytona, the best places to be is either in the front of the pack
or the back
of the pack. Because being in the middle of that, and within the last 5 laps, I mean, what is it? Damn near every Daytona 500 goes into overtime because there is a lap or there is a crash on lap 199.
This was the second time in 5 years they did not go into overtime.
Right. So, I mean, and you go back to Saturday's race. I got all excited, turned on the CW. Hey, man, let's watch some O'Reilly Auto Parts Daytona 300, whatever it was. These guys wrecked before they even made it to the start-finish line to take the green flag.
That's good. That's good.
One of the guys didn't get going, and it caused a chain reaction. And there were guys out of the race before the race even officially started.
Could you imagine?
All the buildup, all the hype, everything you've been practicing for.
You are out on lap -1. Okay. I would be furious. But and here's the thing, like, again, we had two wrecks in the last lap, and certainly outside of the pacing shit that we saw yesterday with the Toyotas, I think it's a fair assumption that we could say the Daytona 500 is rougher than it has been in the past. But you don't have, you know, you don't have the Rick Mass and the Morgan Shepherds and the Dave Marcuses of the 90s who have been there for 35 years that are almost like the calming presence on the track. I mean, you have 5 dudes that are still willing to compete in Busch and Denny Hamlin and Brett Keselowski and those guys. And then you got a bunch of kids that are trying to make their name.
Right.
So I'm not surprised by how that race went yesterday. And of all my complaints that I have about the 500, the one I will not have is that the only lap Josh Reddick or Tyler Reddick led was the last one.
Doesn't matter.
I think that's outstanding.
Last Saturday, North Carolina played Duke in basketball. North Carolina led that game when they hit a buzzer beater at the end. That was the only lead they have of that game.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters is who wins in the end.
Yeah. I would say most NASCAR fans agree with that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because again, you're watching that race and you're seeing all these cars just peel off from wrecks, and all of a sudden this 45 emerges out of nowhere. You're like, who the hell was that guy? Literally didn't hear his name the entire race.
No, but he was right there. And I mean, and that's, you know, that's good. I don't have a problem with that.
No.
And I'm all for hard-nosed, head-to-head racing towards the checkered flag at the start-finish line. That's what NASCAR needs. And if NASCAR wants to get back to prominence, they need more of it.
Yeah, you got the bumping and runs is what put NASCAR on the map.
But see, also what put NASCAR on the map is the geography of the NASCAR fan. Right? NASCAR doesn't belong in Kansas.
Oh, they could get rid of Kansas on the schedule. I'd be fine with it. That track is terrible.
But
racing.
I mean, the North Wilkesboros and the Rockinghams and the
right.
I mean,
Darlington,
it's still there. Darlington. Those are races. You know, they do that West Coast swing, and that's when my viewers, my viewing hours of NASCAR seem to kind of fade. California's gone.
Yeah.
This year they're actually doing a road course in San Diego at the Naval Base.
More on that in a minute.
So, I'm for the road courses. So they decided to not do the Roval at Charlotte this year.
Thank God. Thank God. I hated the Roval.
But I mean, some of the more odd tracks have some of the better racing. Pocono. I mean, that's a good race usually.
Pocono is a good race. Chicago street race and Mexico City street races are out. Chicagoland's back in.
I thought Chicagoland was gone.
It's still there, but it's another one of those tracks that if one thing happens, the leader can run away and hide. He can win that race by 14 seconds, just like Kansas. And when I say Kansas is a terrible racetrack, I'm not speaking of the track itself or the locale. I mean, I'm pretty sure Kansas is in the middle of nowhere, just like Chicagoland is in Joliet. But nobody wants to watch a race where the leader can just get out in front with one pit strategy move and just win by 14 seconds. That's terrible.
Yeah.
They are adding a base Coronado Naval Base in San Diego. There's a road course there. And what I'm interested to see and what NASCAR is trying to do here, and I understand you have to, right, to grow, is they're trying to grow the international market reach. And I think they need to start have a road course in Europe. You have plenty of options, right? Have a road course.
That's the logistics of getting those cars there is just astronomical.
I understand, but Formula One has races here.
I know, but I don't know. I don't know if there is to me, NASCAR is an American sport. Formula One is more of a world sport.
Mm-hmm.
And IndyCar, obviously, they do races in Mexico and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, you think about the number of cars you have to send. I mean, how many cars do they send to Daytona?
Let me see if I can find out. Yeah, it was over 40 for sure.
No, not only that, but I'm talking about each team has backups.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot. And I mean, that's a lot of logistics. They don't have many off weekends. And if you're going to Europe, you need an off weekend before and an off weekend after.
Well, if you did do
Formula One doesn't race every weekend like NASCAR does.
Right. I would say, I don't know why Spain's coming into my head, but it is. So let's say they go to Spain. If you go to Spain, there's a track like Chicagoland that's going to get axed if you decide to do that, at least for that season. Because there was a while they were doing Montreal for a couple of years. Xfinity was too. They were doing Mexico, so the Chicago road race. And I think what they're trying to disprove is this, and it's been around since I started watching NASCAR in the 90s, is, well, the drivers can only turn left. That's all I know how to do.
Yeah.
So they're trying to dispel that rumor and prove that these guys are actual drivers. So I get it. But if they do want to improve their international market share, then I mean that is something they're going to have to figure out. Maybe, well, again, you can't even do that because.
I got a question: who do you guys believe is the Michael Jordan of NASCAR? Is it Earnhardt or Petty? I'd have to say Earnhardt.
Yeah, I would say Petty is like the Wilt Chamberlain. He started it, and then Jordan.
Yeah, and the difference is Richard Petty has 200 wins.
Yeah,
but Richard Petty was doing it against he had the best
mechanics, local mechanics,
and the best mechanics, and it wasn't when NASCAR wasn't run the way it is now. They would run multiple races in a week and all kinds of stuff when Richard Petty was winning all these races. So it's different, and I mean it was basically Richard Petty and God, who was the bootlegger guy?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but from Petty's day, it would have been Cale Yarborough was in that group.
Yeah, so it was like there's only like 3 or 4 that were even
Buddy Baker.
Buddy Baker. So you had Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, Buddy Baker. I mean, and that's really it. So, and then you had, I mean, Earnhardt dominated when it was Petty was still there, and you had Darrell Waltrip and Rusty Wallace, and you had some of those guys coming in that were still big names, but it was still 7 championships is a lot. And I mean, it's just, as much as I was not a fan of Dale Earnhardt as a kid, obviously never would have wished what happened to him happen.
Right.
But, and as big of a fan I was of Earnhardt Jr. So, but like growing up, I was a huge Bill Elliott fan. That was my favorite driver. So it was just one of those things. So, but now I despised Kyle Busch when he was at Joe Gibbs Racing.
I did too.
Love him now. And I want to see him get back to the Kyle Busch of old. So, yes, the Winston Cup era was the greatest.
I would say that's correct. Yeah.
Because it went from Winston Cup to Nextel Cup, and that was just stupid.
Nextel Cup, yeah.
And then went to Sprint, and then Monster. And then they decided, hey, we're just the NASCAR Cup Series.
So before we've gone 55 minutes. So before we sign off, let's go over some stats for the 500. We'll go over briefly Atlanta Echo Park next week. So here's some stats for the 500. They had 26 different leaders, with Ray being number 26, over 66 lead changes. Now, 26 different leaders is a record. 66 lead changes is not, which is crazy. It's in the 70s is the record.
And that was probably the years of the when they hook up. They do the 2x2 racing the whole time.
That was part of tomorrow. They couldn't draft. They couldn't pack draft
because they'd overheat.
Yeah. Bubba Wallace in the number 23 led the most laps with 40, but of course Tyler Reddick led 1 lap, and it was the most important one, the last one.
But Bubba Wallace led that middle part where they just rode.
That's correct. He was one of the 3 that was out front. Actually, I think one of his teammates was also. I just can't remember which one it was. There are currently 5 cars that have won NASCAR championships, but have yet to win the 500. It's Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Ryan Blaney. Larson's 33, Blaney's 32, Elliott's 30. And he was the leader coming out of turn 4 on the final lap before he got caught up in the wreck.
Got put in the wall. Yep.
Kyle Busch will be 41 in May, and this is his 23rd season. And Keselowski just turned 42, and he's in his 19th season. So I would have to imagine their chances to finally win the elusive Daytona 500 are numbered.
Yeah. They won't be around forever.
But by the way, the fact that Keselowski is 42 and is in his 19th season, and Busch even for that matter, is mind-boggling because I remember when they were both rookies. I was actually at the race in Talladega when Carl Edwards put Keselowski in the catch fence.
Yeah. Damn near killed him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he ran across the finish line because that was also the year Talladega Nights came out.
Yeah.
So real quick, let's do a preview of Atlanta. We're going to Echo Park. And right now, the 5 active drivers with the best average finish at Echo Park is Kyle Busch. How about this one? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I would not have seen coming. Ryan Blaney. Here's another name. AJ Allmendinger and Chase Elliott. What's going to be interesting?
And last year in Atlanta, you had Christopher Bell win the first race, and Chase Elliott win the second.
And Christopher Bell's coming on strong. He's going to be,
and that was a good. Atlanta has been good racing.
Yeah. So what's interesting here is in that mix, but I didn't include him because he only has 1 start. Is Connor Zilisch. And go ahead and retire your fears. Connor Zilisch will be the rookie of the year because he's the only one.
Yeah.
And so I would say those 6 drivers, and with Christopher Bell winning last year, so 7. Those are the 7 drivers to watch. But Dave, real quick, I think heading into next year, what's going to be interesting is you have 20 drivers with contracts that are expiring, and just a litany of Xfinity drivers that seem to be ready. To make the hop.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting to see how this year going into next year plays out. But we got to take one thing at a time. This weekend's Atlanta. That's what we got next. Dave, who you got going into Atlanta?
Gosh, that's tough. You got to kind of go. I mean, he was there at the end, and he won the last race in Atlanta. I mean, how can you not go with Chase Elliott? And it's the hometown boy from Georgia.
That's correct. I like that pick. But I would say when I was growing up, and Dave, you could probably attest to this if you didn't remember who he was, Dave Blaney, when he drove, I always said, if I was ever going to start a race team, the first hire I would have would be Dave Blaney because he's consistently in the top 20 and he doesn't wreck cars. And I would say his son, Ryan, is in that same boat.
Yep.
Doesn't get into a lot of trouble. And he's consistently going to, but instead of being in the top 20, he's going to be in the front. With that being said, Ryan Blaney is going to be my pick heading into Atlanta. So let's write this down. Blaney
and Elliott.
I'm going to put it in the banners. Atlanta. And we'll see how we do as the season goes on. Oh, wait, you said Elliott. And what do you think, Dave? This new loose on turn 4. Or loose going into 4. What do you I feel good. I love talking about NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, I can sit here and talk about NASCAR all the time. Back in the day, when I first met Jandy, my dream job was to be a NASCAR rider.
A sports writer for NASCAR?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. I actually almost went, when I got out of the military, I almost went to Charlotte to become a NASCAR pit crewman. That's where you train at, is there. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. I'm back in Indiana like a dope. So this has been Loose going into 4. We will see you next week as we talk about what happened at Echo Park in Atlanta. In the meantime, what a Daytona 500 finish. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll continue to join us as the year goes on. We'll see you next week here on Loose going into 4.
Thanks for watching. See you next time right here on Markout Moments.